Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra,
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people.
associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked.
and sometimes what didn't,
You will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Hi. In this episode, I continue my conversation with Tom Pierce, the president and founder of Integrated Information Systems, I2S. I'd asked him a question on how the integrated in his company name is internalized by his clients. He responds to that question and also shares many more interesting thoughts in this episode. For example, he shared how their weekly 5-hour workshops for clients to get vibrant conversations going has helped, and the use of music in some of those interactions. And he also talks about his experience with music when practicing first base as a solo or separately, and then with the entire team. The metaphor that he used from baseball is something that I found very interesting on being present and aware of the other players and taking decisions on the spot. I also asked him about how children learn music and whether there are lessons that we can adopt from there to make software teams more effective. Very interesting answer for that as well. His career tips for those considering a career in IT, as well as those considering a switch mid-career, particularly from non-tech to tech roles. He also draws from his experience of holding his first grandchild in his hands. That's beautiful. That is about a response to a question on patience and a sense of urgency or rushing through life. And finally, how he finds time for being interested and engaged in multiple activities. Listen on. A related point or a thought,
Sure.
again, from comparing from military, normally we say it is all command and control. Whereas, I'm sure it's there in the military as well. Software is more of a team sport, right? When you talk about
Yes.
understanding the needs and then solving it, and it's probably not one person who's going to solve it, whether it is in the team of the people who are developing the solutions or the users who need to use this. Okay.
Right.
I particularly liked the name of your company when you say Integrated Information Systems, right? So,
Thank you.
and how do you ensure that your clients become an
Right.
integrated organization?
Wow. Fascinating question. Let me just give you a vignette, just a slight picture. So this was not early. I should have started this earlier, but more recently, we've started inviting our clients to workshops.
Okay.
We have a standing workshop every Wednesday that runs 5 hours.
Uh-huh.
And we kind of rotate among our clients, and they come in and we brainstorm. There's no agenda. There's no plan of action and milestones. You know, maybe a couple of organic ideas will grow out of it that become tasks. But the whole idea of it is, let's talk about your needs, your issues, your problems, what we're working on, how they blend, how they dovetail, how they conflict. And that interaction is so energetic and so vibrant. It you know, again, at this point in my career, looking backwards, I look back at all of the various names people have come up with for the right way to run a meeting. For the right way to put the butcher paper or the sticky notes, or I'm sure you're quite an expert in all these techniques that people use to try to get conversations going. Well, use whatever technique works for you, but don't ever lose sight of the goal is actually an engaging, vibrant conversation where people are telling the truth to each other. Where people are building relationships with each other. The last meeting we had last week, had an incredibly positive exchange with a guy that he and I used to not get along at all. But we finally found the common ground and the common problem we're trying to solve. And the sense of respect and camaraderie, it really is. I use a lot of music metaphors. I got a lot of music in my background. It really is seeking harmony rather than unison. It's seeking that symphony and that orchestra. You want people disagreeing with each other. You want the different perspectives. You're not trying to come up with, forgive me, one of my least favorite phrases, one version of the truth. There are multiple people in this room with decades of experience and valuable perspectives. We truly can understand each other if that is our stated and intentional goal. And that client and developer relationship is the glue. Don't go develop something and then search for a client who might find value in it. And don't go to a client and say, I don't even need to talk to you. I already know what you need. No, engage, figure out, what do they want? What do you have? How does it fit? How can you change it? Another one of the analogies my son came up with that I just love is he actually came at it from gun manufacturers, but I prefer it from cabinet makers, that there's this 80% threshold that you can accomplish about 80% of what anybody needs with the standard package. But that last 20% is going to be customized. So you save the time and the energy, you sort of quote mass produce or replicate 80%, but that last 20%, you got to be on the ground, in the space, understanding the situation to do the tweaks and the custom fits. And I really think that's where the payoff, the harvest comes out, is in that integration of multiple streams of background and thought, the harmony, the orchestration, all of it.
Okay. Yeah. So as a person who is outside the organization, I guess you can easily spot the patterns, where to connect, what to connect. But for people who are in the process every day, how do you get them to either see the big picture or at least adopt, say, maybe changed ways of working?
Right. But I think one of the great challenges of this generation, the post-information age, whatever you want to call it, is that we have exceeded the capacity of most people to comprehend what's going on around them. It's information overload exponentially. And so one of the normal human behaviors in that environment is to turtle up, to cave, and to just get the blinders on and stay focused. Only what is my responsibility, only what I'm supposed to do. And the siloing can easily become fragmentation in any organization. I am a fan of segmentation. I believe that you replicate and differentiate, right? Every organization, every function, every team, every individual has unique skills that are different than other skills, but that need not be your only identity, your calling card, your only frame of reference. It needs not to be. In a choir that I was in college, we practiced as sections. I was a first bass. So I went and sang in a small room with just the first bases, and we sang just that part, and it sounded terrible. Just us, we could tell all the notes, but it didn't. And the choir master would occasionally bring us back together and sing with the other basses and then the tenors. And then none of us heard the whole thing with all of the instruments and the solos till dress rehearsal. That was the first time we heard it all blend together. And I think functionally, most organizations have gone way too far towards the specialization to the point of fragmentation and need regular routine at every level, cross-functional collaboration, so that they understand, how does my shortcut impact your workload? And when you can get that collaboration really at the lowest level possible. One of my favorite metaphors is American baseball. Please forgive me. I am baffled by cricket. Someday I'll take the time to learn it. But in American baseball, I think one of the reasons Americans love it so much is because of all of the clear, difficult, complex decision making that happens in the instant. When a shortstop catches the ball, he has to decide where to throw it before he catches it. And the metaphor of the shortstop catching the ball and then looking into the dugout to get some visual clue from the manager, what should I do now? Or worse yet, up to the owner's suite. Okay, boss, you pay my paycheck. What do you want me to do with this baseball? Is absurd. The guys on the field have to know each other and anticipate each other's move across multiple different roles. And then that gets paralleled in the coaching circles and in the owner circles. And I think the larger corporations, the one that tend to act like aircraft carriers and can't move very fast, they get way too many layers. And the true cross-functional collaboration, if it happens at all, only happens in the C-suite when vice presidents are trying to cut each other's throat because they each want the other one's job. That feeds down into organizations toxically. So at every level, the collaboration and speaking each other's language, just practice, prepare. I'm a much bigger fan of preparation and practice than I am of planning. People take the word plan and they just turn it into something rigid. Why didn't you execute the plan? Because it wasn't a good plan. Because the anticipated circumstances changed. But at every level, collaborate, get to know the people whose jobs you're impacting by your decisions. I think the work from home phenomenon from COVID and the shutdowns actually made that much worse, because people tended to silo themselves and fragment themselves, and you lose so much of that in-person dynamic, that body language dynamic that lets you know when you're moving towards harmony instead of discord. So I think that's probably the most difficult and most important ingredient to a healthy organization.
Yeah, wonderful. Actually, this has been one thought that I've been having for a very long time, but I've never been able to either articulate or get someone to find the analogy, which is we find that when children learn music, it's very different from the way we probably teach them any other things. Like you said, ultimately it has to come together as a team. But more than that, just by listening to a note, you know whether it is discord or whether it is cacophony or whatever else. So can we? So that is the question that has been kind of, I wouldn't say bothering me. At least I think that if we can teach people how to write code the way you would do music, by looking at something or by understanding that we talk about different these design patterns and stuff like that, which are good patterns. But when we implement them, can I find out that, oh no, this is not a symphony? So if people can do that kind of collaboration as they work together, so that their approach of learning or doing itself, somebody who appreciates music and software development can probably come up with something. I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts either today or maybe some other time.
Beautiful thought. I will let you know that one of the programmers that has worked with me for 20 years is also a musician. We recently sang a duet together in church that was just incredibly fulfilling. I'm hoping to have him over to my new house soon. But yes, he is gifted in the art of harmony, and a big part of that is humility. And the listening that you mentioned, even pointing to the ear, you have to tune to each other, right?
Absolutely.
There's no point in debating which one of us is in the correct tune. It's just pick one and tune to each other so that you're together on it. But the listening and the awareness, but the beauty, the artistry of code. I fell in love with elegant code a long time ago. I mean, you can make it sterile. You can say it needs to be, readable and reusable and, you know, all of these things. But come on, you look at it and you say, that's just gorgeous. I love the way this code works.
Yeah.
That has enduring value.
Yeah.
That will last. The code that was just scribbled down and cobbled together and just barely works like, you know, duct tape and baling twine, that won't last a year. Yeah. It'll be gone with the first storm.
Yeah.
And I love what you're thinking there. You've really got me energized with the developing the art and not just the science of elegant and beautiful and harmonious code, that because it inspires. Absolutely. I mean, technology inspires when it's done right, when it's done well, when it's done beautifully.
Yeah. Because again, going back to music, what fascinates me is the performers on stage. They know that they can create the experience only together. And sometimes the way the lead changes, now who leads, who follows, what happens. I mean, it all seems to be happening like magic, but I'm sure they have protocols. They know when to start, when to stop, when to hand over, take over. How can we kind of teach that? Ultimately, you know, it has to be, like you said, in baseball, the decision and in the moment, but then people need to be in the moment.
They do. Yeah. And I think the most invisible and the most difficult part to analyze, discuss, document is that dynamic. You know, the tiny lift of an eyebrow, just the little nod that says, I'm going to go do this, you do that, you know, it just, the way humans communicate at that almost subliminal level is phenomenal. I don't think we're anywhere near digitizing that. We don't even understand it ourselves, except that even as children, we learn it. I joke with people, you know, the closest I have to anything AI in my home is the Amazon Alexa, you know, and usually I just ask Alexa to play a song for me, whatever. But then Alexa has started getting a little bit more annoying with, you know, I have a suggestion for you. I would recommend this, you know, is this helpful? No. Well, I also have 7 grandchildren that are 4 years old and younger, right?
Oh, nice.
Alexa cannot tell when I'm upset. Every one of my grandchildren can.
Oh, wow.
When Alexa knows that I'm irritated at her, then that's a leap forward. But really, the more positive way to say it, if Alexa responded to the joy in my voice, in my face, that I love that song, you know, children are inspired by that, you know, to make Grandpa smile. That there's love in it. There's absolutely love in how we learn and how we imitate and how we seek joy and happiness in all of our interactions. And there's just no need for technology to be sterile of all of that. It's silly to think that you're going to segregate human emotion out of the whole equation of technology. I think that's how it has become. I'm sure you can go into almost any store and you'll find some clerk angry at her cash register, you know, point of sale machine or whatever. The relationship between humans and technology has grown incredibly toxic, and the restoration of something that, you know, is more like the way an artist would pick up a violin and just, I love what I'm able to do with this thing. That's what we got to pursue in technology.
Yeah. Okay. With this setting, I usually like to get or pick our guests' wisdom in terms of career tips. Okay, for maybe 2 segments of people. In your case, I'll probably change it slightly.
Okay.
One, of course, for people who are considering a career in information technology. Okay. The second is typically those who might be in their midlife crisis or wanting to switch. And since you said that your staff has both the technical as well as people who use the technology,
right?
Let's stick to people who are not in technology today, but in their mid-career, if they want to explore. what would be your tips for them for these two segments of?
Yeah, so let's tackle the midlife change.
Mhm.
One of the most intimidating things that people face is, in midlife, is the idea of changing cultures, learning a new language, learning a new way of doing things. My brother was a missionary. He's lived on 4 continents. His whole career, he's learned 5 languages. If that intimidates you, the idea of changing cultures and learning a new language, don't go into tech. If that fascinates you, if you can't wait to learn another way of looking at things, another way of communicating things. And I spent 1 semester in France, and I actually did in 4 months get to the point where I was actually dreaming in French. And there are things I know how to say in French that I don't know how to say in English, and vice versa. If you want to learn another way of expressing yourself, if that fascinates you, then dive in, and don't just study the textbooks. Immersion, full immersion. Get in, make mistakes, learn from your mistakes. If the tech world fascinates you, if the digital world fascinates you, if the world of ones and zeros and what you can do with them fascinates you, that passion is the key ingredient that will make it successful. If you think tech is where the money is, and so I ought to go learn whatever the JavaScript or AI or whatever, because that's how I'm going to make money, don't do it. You'll hate it. It just don't stay there. I think that was half of your question. I need to be reminded what the other half was.
Yeah, this is for people who are about to start their career, choosing IT versus something else.
All right. I would say start backwards. And what I mean by that is start backwards from the norm. Don't go enhance your resume and then go shop for somebody who's interested in the skills you have. Look around you at the kinds of people that are not satisfied with the technology they have, and figure out a way to help them solve their problems. Get enough tools. It doesn't take much, right? Starting carpenter needs a hammer or 2 screwdrivers. You just start with a very small tool set and figure out a way to actually help somebody's job get easier, quicker, better, more profitable with a small tool set. And then grow your tool set as the problems you're exposed to. Because if you serve one client, even in a small way, well, he'll tell somebody, he'll tell a friend, or he'll come back to you for his next problem. Allow your skill set and your staff, your company, if you're interested in that, allow them to grow in response to the challenges and problems bring your way. Don't get it the other way. Don't go build something you think people ought to want and wait for them to want it. That there's quite a few millions of people that have gone that way, and the competition out there is just brutal. So if you can find a niche and grow it and expand it organically, then it's basically like planting one tree in a place where you think it'll grow, and make sure it's got what it needs, and then allow organic growth to take over from there.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because one of the maybe the stereotypical characteristics that everyone talks about is the young generation is restless and they want instant results. So what would be a reasonable time frame to try all these things, or how does one develop patience?
I think this is actually something that got reinforced. I would say I learned it, but the hints were there. It got reinforced strongly by how dramatically my attitude changed the first time I held a grandchild. When my first grandchild was born and I held her in my arms, how I felt about life changed. And the time takes a completely different role in your life. I am not eager and anxious for my grandchildren to get older. Do I expect them to? Absolutely. Bigger, taller, stronger, wiser, everything. Am I eager, anxious? Is it urgent that my 4-year-old become 14? Heavens no. I don't want that to happen fast.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm living my life in such a way that I can take a break and take him to the zoo like we did last week. It just, you know,
Right.
if you really love what you're doing, then there's no need to rush through it. Make sure you keep loving it. There are way too many people in tech that burn out by the time they're 35 because they're just not finding and sustaining the joy in what they do.
Yeah.
And, you know, you shouldn't have to wait till you're 60 to at least get a pretty strong clue that that's how life works.
Okay. Yeah, two things. I like the sign behind you, which is grandpa's dad without rules. Yeah, that's what
Yes,
I
indeed.
told my daughter when our granddaughter was born, saying that whatever rules apply to you don't apply to her.
Exactly.
And then I'll make different rules. So
That's
the related
exactly.
thing is also
Yes.
about, again, partly time.
Yes.
Is that you have so many different interests.
Yes.
How do you find time for all that?
I'm going to give you a tech answer, and it's crazy. I think this was back in the early days of IBM when they started talking about selling multiprocessors, dual processors. And I heard a cynic say, they're not multiprocessing, they're time slicing. They, you know, but just in you know, microseconds. I'm going to spend 3 microseconds doing this, and then I'm going to switch gears and spend 7 microseconds doing that. We all time slice. Multitasking has become sort of a buzzword that everybody does it. No, you don't. Today's generation gives undivided attention very rarely. You know, they think that they can communicate on their cell phone and in the meeting and do programming all at the same time. No, you're just very rapidly shifting from one focal point to another. Life is short, but at the same time, it's long. Yesterday was a wonderful example. I woke up yesterday. We're in a new home we just built, just moved into. And I woke up yesterday because just kind of exhausted from all of the things going on. And I told my wife I wanted to do as little as possible today.
Okay.
So what doing as little as possible entailed was swimming a few laps in the pool, sitting out enjoying the sun, playing a little bluegrass banjo and sharing it with my friends on Facebook. While I was at it, I nailed up a few sheets of plywood in my workshop and cleaned out the cat's litter box and organized my desk. And I actually accomplished about 12 things.
Wow.
When my intent was to accomplish nothing. It was pace. It was all about pace. When the hurriedness went away. As a matter of fact, one time yesterday, my wife asked me what time it was. And I smiled at her. I was by the pool at that time. I said, I don't know. I don't have a sundial. I could tell where the sun was in the sky. I had zero urgency throughout the day. And I think that is the best way to nurture multiple interests. I do think multiple interests is very healthy. But if I were to try to sit down with a day timer, and I've done this before in my younger, naive years, and take the 168 hours a week and divide them up by the quarter hour, and what am I going to do when?
Yeah.
It destroys the joy. And you lose an awful lot of that flow and that rhythm of just now is a good time to do this.
Yeah. So is the last probably question, even though we say we'll let time flow, still need to be mindful of your time as well as our audience. Are there any personal practices that you would recommend to be calm?
Yes, and it's going to sound quite ironic, and I run the risk of being grossly hypocritical in saying so, but at least in terms of what I have sought. And 4 years in the military grew my appetite for this. Because in that military, there's a time that things just have to be regimented. You know, 5 o'clock means 5 o'clock, and I mean 5 a.m. And you're not late, and you do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. There are times when that's necessary, but there aren't that many times when that's necessary. My wife has 2 cats, and I study them. They're very relaxed creatures. They live by very few principles. They eat when they're hungry. They sleep when they're tired. They move when they're restless. There is so much about our natural wiring, our own internal systems, that our body tells us when it's hungry. Our body tells us when it's tired. We are lonely when we long for company. If you will simply pay attention, I quit waking up to an alarm clock a long time ago. As soon as I could navigate, with my bosses or clients or staff, there's a reasonable expectation of what's going to naturally happen. But if I work till 2 a.m., I'm not going to wake up at 7. So I work when I need to work. I sleep when I'm tired. I eat when I'm hungry. Not always, but that's the goal. And that's part of getting in rhythm with yourself. If you get into a good relationship with yourself, where you are responding to your own signals of what's needed and necessary and important, then that will translate to the way you relate to the people around you.
Yeah, wonderful. I could relate to a lot of things that you said, Tom. I think this could go on for a much longer time, but I guess we are constrained by time. Maybe we'll keep it for another day. So yeah, thanks a lot, Tom.
Shiv, it has been a pleasure and a privilege. I look forward to talking with you again someday.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.